أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. اللهم أخرجنا من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمنا بنور الفهم، وافتح علينا بمعرفة العلم وسهل أخلاقنا بالحلم، وجعلنا ممن يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه. اللهم اجعل أعمالنا خالصة لوجهك ولا تجعل فيها حظا لغيرك. وصل اللهم على سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. الحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. How's everyone today?
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
الحمد
and
لله.
Maulana.
All good, alhamdulillah. I had a nice break last week. Could have been a little bit longer. But anyways, alhamdulillah, it's good to be back in these blessed days, doing one of the most virtuous acts, and that's learning and teaching things that will inevitably, or things that are directed towards, allowing us to understand the Book of Allah better, to take greater care of life. It's what we were created to do. So there can be nothing better for us to be doing in our circumstance. Before we get into our actual lesson, we just to recap our soft skills quickly, as we always do. We can't forget them. So we'll just say our Mazid few skills, and then we'll move on from there. Right? Let's start. فعل يفعل تفعيلا مفعل مفعل فعل لا تفعل. Third scale. فاعل يفاعل فعالا مفاعلة مفاعل مفاعل فاعل لا تفاعل. Fourth scale. أفعل يفعل إفعالا مفعل مفعل أفعل لا تفعل. Fifth scale. تفعل يتفعل تفعلا متفعل متفعل تفعل لا تتفعل. Sixth scale. تفاعل يتفاعل تفاعلا متفاعل متفاعل تفاعل لا تتفاعل. Seventh scale. انفعل ينفعل انفعالا منفعل منفعل انفعل لا تنفعل. The eighth scale. افتعل يفتعل افتعالا مفتعل مفتعل افتعل لا تفتعل. The ninth scale. افعل يفعل افعلالا مفعل افعل لا تفعل. The tenth scale. استفعل يستفعل استفعالا مستفعل مستفعل استفعل لا تستفعل. Right, those are our Mazid fee skills. And literally just say them at the beginning of every lesson so as not to forget them. And so that, just the order sticks in our minds, so that when we come across them, we are able to access them easily, inshallah. Then a few lessons ago, we started with Nahwu as opposed to Sarf in this period. We said that our objective How long was it out?
What?
30
5
seconds.
seconds? 5 seconds for me.
I'm just going to connect. I need to 5 seconds to 1 minute. Okay. Let's just start now. So basically, in Nahwu, if I start slowing down or break it up or anything like that, tell me before the time, and then I'll try and change to other network. Where was I? Yes, we started with Nahwu, and in Nahwu we said we're first looking at the halat themselves, looking at how words look in each of those halat, and we said we have different types of words, and each of those types of words look differently in each of the hals. We looked at the singular word and mufrad word. We looked at the dual word muthanna. We looked at the jam' mudhakkar salim. We looked at the jam' muannath salim. Then we looked at the jam' mukassar. And then we said that there's five special words, al-asma'ul khamsa. And then we looked at words that are ghayr munsarif, semi-declinable words. And then we looked at words that were mabni, words that were non-declinable, that don't change. They can be in each of the different hals, but they don't physically, the forms don't change in those ahwal. Right? It stays the same throughout. So that was our first lesson. Then we said, well, each of these hals have a list of functions that get fulfilled by them, right? And we said that we're going to look specifically at the first or the primary hal, that being halatul raf. We're going to look at all of the different functions that get fulfilled by halatul raf, and then we're going to go through each of those functions and just have a little bit of a slightly deeper lesson. So we said that list included the fa'il in a sentence, the subject of a verbal sentence, naibul fa'il, the subject of this is the substitute to the doer. It's essentially a maf'ulun bihi in a sentence where there will be no maf'ulun bihi. So in a passive verbal sentence, this is like the main component of that sentence, or the focus of that sentence. Then we had the mubtada, the subject of a nominal sentence, the khabar, the predicate of a nominal sentence, ismu kan wa akhawatuha, the subject of a sentence that starts with kana or one of the sisters of kana, and then we had the khabaru inna wa akhawatuha, the predicate of a sentence that begins with inna, or one of the sisters of inna. Sisters of inna, basically words that work the same like inna. We're going to learn those, what the sisters of kana are and what the sisters of inna are when we deal with those lessons, inshallah. So our first lesson was we got into the fa'il and we looked at a number of aspects of the fa'il. Right? Number one, the first thing was that whenever we see a fi'l, that is ma'loom, right? A fi'l, an active form verb, then we know that that fi'l must have a doer. A doer must be mentioned either explicitly or implicitly. Either it's at the end of the verb or it's to the left of the verb that's explicitly mentioned, or it's implicit, it's implied inside the verb, right? So at the end, on the left or inside. And we knew that process already, right? We then showed how that's where the doer will be mentioned, but we also showed why it's important to follow that process. Right? You shouldn't try and look for the doer of the verb on the right. You must follow the process, either at the end or to the left, or firstly at the end, then you look on the left, and then you look inside. You never look to the right. After looking inside the verb, you will find a pronoun that perhaps refers to something on the right, but essentially in the structure of the sentence, the fa'il will be uh, either at the end, on the left, or inside, nowhere else. Right? Then what pertained to this, going through this list of words in the raf, is that we said that the fa'il will always be in a state of raf. Right? It doesn't matter whether the word is semi-declinable, non-declinable, doesn't matter what type of word it is, the word will always be in halatul raf, whether you can see it or you can't see it. Right? And then we just did a whole lot of examples to solidify that. Right? And that was actually the homework that we had. So I just want to, I don't want to spend too much time going through all of that, but I want to take from the 20 examples that we had for homework, I'll maybe pick 5 of them. We can go through them, inshallah. Right. So let's see. Let's do number 1. No, I did number 1 with you in class the last time. Let's do number 3. Let's do number 3. Right. Aslama wajhahu lillahi. These are all parts of verses, right? Verses of the Quran. That's why you have a verse number next to it. So this is from Surah Baqarah, verse number 112. It's a part of that verse. Aslama wajhahu lillahi. The first thing we want to do is, I would say before even translating it, let's try and find the fa'il and the maf'ul bihi. Aslama wajhahu lillahi. Firstly, where is the verb? You need to work through the sentence. Tell me, where's the verb?
Aslama.
Aslama. Right. That's my fi'l. That's my verb. Where then is my, after we have a verb, we know we need to find out what that verb means. Firstly, what verb is this verb on?
The fourth verb.
The fourth verb, right? So we know it's a past tense verb, right? So now let's try and find the doer. Firstly, we'll look at the end of aslama. Is there anything at the end of it?
No.
No. To the left?
No.
Wajhahu, nothing there.
No.
Right. That's actually 2 words, right? Wajha and the dhamir attached to wajhahu. So the word wajha you can see is in nasb, it's not in raf. In nasb, not in raf. Right? And this dhamir is just attached to that. And then we have a lillahi. That's also 2 parts there. A harful jar, li, and the Allahi jar. Raf over there. Where do we look next?
Inside.
Inside. Inside is a he, a huwa, right? Aslama is the standard masculine form. So aslama, he submitted wajhahu. What did he submit?
His face.
He submitted wajhahu, his face, to Allah. So what's the maf'ul bihi? What's the thing that he submitted?
Wajha.
Wajha. Right, and yeah, it's this is a a rhetorical feature as Allah uses here in the Quran. That we call dhikrul juz wa iradatul kull, where you mention a part of something but you intend the whole. I think, if I remember correctly, I think in English you call it a synecdoche. I think so. You mention a part of something but you intend the whole thereby. But Allah uses, okay, I'm not supposed to get into a tafsir of the verse. I'm just looking for the fa'il and the maf'ul bihi. Aslama wajhahu lillahi. He submitted wajhahu, his face, lillahi, to Allah. The fa'il is he inside aslama, and wajhahu is the maf'ulun bihi. Right. Let's look at number if there's any particular one that you guys want me to go through, then
Well,
just
could
tell
we
me.
look at number 12? I had some trouble labeling the examples when it was a command, I think.
Okay, brilliant. Bismillah. Let's look at that one. Number 12. أخرج قومك من الظلمات إلى النور. أخرج قومك من الظلمات إلى النور. So where's our verb here?
أخرج.
أخرج.
The verb is أخرج. Good. Right. What kind of verb is أخرج?
Amr.
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 It's a أمر.
أمر.
Right. Okay. So now that we have an أمر, it's a little bit trickier. You remember when you did your lesson on forming the أمر? Right? When you did the lesson on forming the amr, which form of the word did we say we adapt to create the amr?
The mudari.
The mudari, yes. And which part of the mudari scale?
Send it to the sign on the middle root letter. So like the harakat of the middle.
I'm not talking about how we change the word. Which word specifically on the second bab is which word specifically on the mudari scale is it that we change into the amr? Remember the mudari scale has a third
Hamzatul Wasl, Maulana.
Say again?
The Hamzatul Wasl.
My friends, listen. We use the present tense scale, right? The mudari scale. And we convert that to an amr scale. But it's not the whole of the present tense scale that we use. Remember, the amr scale only has 6 words. Or actually, we might only have done 4 words. If'al, if'alu, if'ali, if'alna. Which specific words from the second scale or from the mudari scale was it that we changed into those commands? We have it in the comments.
The second person, Maulana.
The second person, right? The second person part of the scale. Who are the fa'ils built into the second person part of the scale? Second person means what? Third person is he, she, they, them, the ones that outside the conversation. Second person is the one I'm talking to. Right? You, either one or two or plural, masculine or feminine, but it's always you. Right? So built into the amr is the fa'il of that amr. The fa'il of the amr is the one to whom the amr is addressed.
Maulana, that's a bit confusing for me at least, because that sounds like a maf'ul now. Because if you're commanding, you're not actually mentioned in the sentence, is it? If you're saying something, you're addressing the person, so isn't that the maf'ul?
So you see, there's the addressee, there's the originator of the speech. Right? In this case, the speech is all Allah's speech. Right? But when Allah says, akhrij literally comes from the 4th bab. Kharaja means to exit. Akhraja means to cause something to exit, or to take something out. Right? So akhrij will be the command, take out. Now the question is, who must take out? Who must do the act of taking out? So we must make it when we have a fi'al. When we have a amr, we must make a distinction between the one mentioning the amr. They are the amir, or they are the speaker of the amr. Right? So if we ask the question, man ya'mur, who's the one commanding? Who's the fa'il of the command? Then we'll say the fa'il of the command itself is Allah. But who is going to be the fa'il of this act of ikhraj? Who's going to be the doer of the act of taking out?
So, Mulana, so
The one that's commanded.
essentially there's like
Not the one that is commanded.
essentially
Sorry, the one that is commanded. Sunir, bismillah.
I say essentially there's like two commands. Sorry, two verbs. There's the command and then there's the action. So you have to distinguish between the two.
Yes.
And you obviously focus the file. You look at the file of the action.
Yes. That's precisely it. When you have a command implies that there's an address, right? And it also implies that there is a speaker. There is a talib, there is somebody that is making this request or this command or whatever the case may be. So in that case, that's usually the speaker. The speaker is the one giving the command. And the spoken to will then be the fa'il of the command. It's expected of the one that's spoken to carry out that action. So a very good choice of one to look at because of that confusion that could exist. But when we speak about a fa'il of a amr, in our Arabic breakdown of things, right, then we're speaking about the person to whom the command is directed. Because it will be them that fulfills that action. Firstly, is that point understood? Whenever we speak about the fa'il of a command verb, we are speaking about the one to whom that command is directed, because it is them that will fulfill that action.
Yes, Maulana. Understood.
Okay, then we have another question. Isn't it that the command verb should start either with a kasra or a dhamma? Yeah, it starts with a fatha. Good question. On the first verb, it will either start with a dhamma or kasra. If we go down, if you look at the scale for the verb kharaja yakhruju, kharaja yakhruju. If I were to form that into an amr, the amr would be ukhruj. Ukhruj. But remember, in addition to that first scale, we learned 9 other scales, the 10 mazid fi scales. Right? And we learned how to form an amr for each of those scales. For example, on the scale fa'ala yufa'ilu, that's the second verb, what will be the amr form?
Fa'il.
Fa'il. Right? If I go down the scale, you hear fa'ala yufa'ilu taf'ilan mufa'ilun mufa'alun fa'il. That's the amr. Right? If I go to the third scale, fa'ala yufa'ilu, what's the amr going to be?
Fa'il.
Fa'il. If I go to the 10th scale, what's it going to be? Istaf'ala yastaf'ilu.
Istaf'il.
Istaf'il. Right. If I go to the 4th scale, af'ala yuf'ilu. What's it going to be?
Af'il.
Af'il. Af'il. And that's exactly what we have here at number 12. Are we doing number 12 or number 11?
Number 12.
Number 12.
12.
Right? That's exactly what we have here at number 12. This verb is not kharaja yakhruju on the first verb. This verb over here is the command form of akhraja yukhriju on the fourth verb. Right? That's why it doesn't start with a kasra or dhamma. It has to fit the exact form of the amr of that scale. Right? So it's akhraja yukhriju, and the amr form is akhrij. Who is the fa'il of akhrij? When I have an amr now, I don't even have to. You can do ili. You can do ili, but you don't even have to. You don't even have to. Because you already know that this amr was formed from the second person. You only need to look, is it singular, is it plural, is it masculine, or is it feminine? So who would be the fa'il of akhrij?
You.
You, singular male.
You, singular male. Right? Where is it? Where is the fa'il?
Inside.
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 Right? It's inside. At the anta, that is inside. أخرج قومك, and what's the مفعول به now? What must be taken out? قومك. So it's a command to a person. أخرج قومك. Oh, you, referring to the Prophet, right? Take your people out من الظلمات, from ظلمات, from darknesses, إلى النور, into the light. Take your people out from the darknesses into the light.
Can I ask a question there, please? Is the maf'ulun bihi just the qawm, right? Not the ka? Because qawma ka means your people.
Right.
So technically,
Brilliant.
which part of it is?
Okay. So tell me, when you have a mudaf,
Amir.
when you have a
Ism.
dhamir attached to an ism,
ضمير.
right? What structure does it form?
مضاف مضاف إليه.
مضاف إليه. قومك, the people of you, or your people, right? The first part of that word, the first part of the word is the mudaf. The second part of the word is the mudaf ilayh. Or the first part of the construction is the mudaf. The second part is the mudaf ilayh. Right? Now, mudaf ilayh is a function in a sentence that gives a word a hal. But being a mudaf doesn't give a word a hal. Remember when you learned the mudaf ilayh construction, you learned that the mudaf can be in any hal.
Yes, Maulana.
Yeah, that makes
Quoting
sense.
old stuff now. Right? And you learned that the mudaf ilayh will always be in halatul
خالة كسر
Jar.
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 Right? You have a
Yes.
light word followed by jar. That's how you learned it. Right? But that light word, we didn't say that it must be in any specific hal. No, that light word gets the hal of whichever function it's playing in the sentence. Mudafun ilayh is like it gets its hal because it's attached to something. So the word qawmah, just that word qawmah, is the mudafun, is the maf'ulun bihi. The word ka or the dhamir ka, that is mudafun ilayh to the word qawmah. The qawmah is going to be in nasb and ka is going to be in jar. Min is a harful jar. Al-dhulumati is going to be in halatul jar. Ila is a harful jar and nuri is going to be in halatul jar. Understood?
That makes sense. Shukran.
Okay. And then we had a request to do number 10. Let's just do that one quickly. يخرجونهم من الظلمات إلى النور. Very similar. يخرجونهم من الظلمات إلى النور. We have a verb here. What's our verb? يخرجون. Let's look for the fa'il of يخرجون. Again, from where does this word يخرجون come from? From the verb أخرج يخرج. And then you go down the scale. يخرج يخرجون. Right, so it's a present tense verb and it is plural. Let's find the fa'il. Eli. Firstly, we look at the end of it. Is there anything at the end?
Maulana. Yes,
Excuse me?
Maulana.
Yes, right? The una.
Yes, Maulana.
Yes, Maulana.
Some.
The una. Not the whom,
يخرجون.
the una. That's what's at the end. And
Oh.
and then if I have a una at the end, I can check if it's third person or second person by seeing is there a ya or ta at the beginning. Remember, if I say that scale, yukhriju, yukhrijuna, tukhriju, yukhrijna, tukhriju, tukhrijuna. So this yukhrijuna is they many males and tukhrijuna is you many males. So you have yukhrijuna, they many males. So there's something at the end. They many males removed or brought out. Who did they bring out? Now you should know this also. Whenever you have a damir attached to a verb, what is that damir?
مفعول به.
مفعول به.
مفعول به.
Right, it's the maf'ul bi. So my fa'il is the una and the hum is my maf'ulun bihi. They removed them from the light ila dhulumat into the darknesses. So this is now obviously speaking
I
about the
actually
shayateen.
mean number 9,
Oh,
not number 10.
Okay.
I realized now it wasn't number 10, number 9.
Okay, let's look at that so quickly. والشعراء يتبعهم الغاوون. والشعراء يتبعهم الغاوون. والشعراء. What kind of word is it?
Ism.
Ism. So what kind of sentence do we have here?
جملة اسمية.
اسمية.
جملة اسمية. Right. What's the first word in the jumla ismiyah?
مبتدأ.
Mubtada. So this word here is my mubtada. Right. This word here, وَالشُّعَرَاءُ is my mubtada. Then where's my verb? يَتَّبِعُهُمْ. So this word is in halatul raf because it is my mubtada. Remember in our list, we said the mubtada is always in raf. Right? So this word shu'ara'u is in the raf because it is the mubtada. Right, next. يَتَّبِعُهُمْ الْغَاوُونَ. The verb here that we have is يَتَّبِعُ. يَتَّبِعُ. It's from the root letters is tabi'a, but this one is on the 8th verb. اتبع. It, and we don't want to stop between it. It's like اتبع. So we just replace the two tas, we shove them into each other, and it becomes, the form is actually ifta'ala. But remember, the fa is a ta. The fa root letter is a ta. So two tas next to each other. So we have ittaba'a, yattabi'u, right? Yattabi'u. So here we have the verb yattabi'u, means to follow. Tell me. Let's look for the fa'il. Is the fa'il on the verb yattabi'u? Anything on the?
No.
No.
No, no.
Okay. Where do I look next?
Left.
At the
To the
left.
left. What's on the left?
غاؤون.
Al-ghawuna. Al-ghawuna. Is that word in halatul raf?
Yes, Manana.
Yes, Malan.
Una.
Yes, it is. The word, the singular form is ghawin. The plural is ghawuna. If it had to be nasb or jar, it would have been ghawina.
غاؤون.
Ghawina, because it's a masculine plural.
Yeah.
Sound masculine plural. Una.
Plural.
Right, so this word is in raf. Is this my fa'il?
Yes, yes, Manana.
So this is my fa'il.
Because it's not off.
Right, this is my fa'il. So yattabi'u is my fi'al. Yattabi'u is my fi'al. And al-ghawuna is my fa'il. And where is my maf'ulun bihi?
Hum.
Hum is attached to them. Now let's translate that. وَالشُّعَرَاءُ and the poets. وَالشُّعَرَاءُ and the poets. This is not speaking about any poetry now. But this is obviously speaking about poets who engage in unpraiseworthy poetry. There's poetry that's permissible and allowed, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam actually enjoyed and allowed his companions to partake in it. Right? So yeah, we're also speaking about bad poets. وَالشُّعَرَاءُ يَتَّبِعُهُمْ الْغَاوُونَ. and washu'ara, and the poets, al-ghawun, follow them. Al-ghawun referring to the deviant people. They follow
The
them.
deviate.
The deviant people,
Mm.
they follow the poets. They follow them. Look at this whom here at the end of yattabi'u is referring to who? Referring to the poets. So the sentence could have been يتبع الغاوون الشعراء. يتبع الغاوون الشعراء. شعراء. It would have meant the same thing. The غاوون, the deviant people, follow the poets. But when you put the word الشعراء at the beginning, you make them the mubtada of the sentence. And when something is the mubtada of the sentence, it's the subject, it's the focus of that sentence. So for a rhetorical benefit, the word shu'ara is not left at the end as the done upon in the sentence. It's made the focus of the sentence. وَالشُّعَرَاءُ يَتَّبِعُهُمْ الْغَاوُونَ. You understand? So in the breakdown of the sentence, we have وَالشُّعَرَاءُ is the mubtada, يَتَّبِعُ is my fi'al, الْغَاوُونَ is my fa'il, and hum is my maf'ulun bihi. It could get tricky. But if you just follow the rules, then you could understand it correctly, inshallah.
Could I just retranslate that, please?
وَالشُّعَرَاءُ, and the poets, يَتَّبِعُهُمْ الْغَاوُونَ. The غاوون, and so it's like you'd have, and the poets, comma, the غاوون, the deviant ones, follow them. So them referring to the poets again.
So Maulana, is the jumlatu fi'liya part of that sentence, is that the khabar?
Yes.
The whole khabar.
The whole sentence, يَتَّبِعُهُمْ الْغَاوُونَ, that whole construct, that whole jumla fi'liya is the khabar.
The khabar.
So الشعراء is the mubtada. What's the khabar? يَتَّبِعُهُمْ الْغَاوُونَ. يَتَّبِعُهُمْ الْغَاوُونَ. That whole sentence here, our pen isn't working now, but this whole thing here is my khabar. Right? So now, so the khabar is that is the khabar, but there isn't a single word that's a khabar that I can apply that hal of raf to. So we say that whole sentence, that whole verbal sentence, يَتَّبِعُهُمْ الْغَاوُونَ, is my khabar, and the whole sentence is like, theoretically in raf because it's the khabar. We actually have a sentence in front of us. Let's break down the sentence. And when we break down the sentence, we see that we have a fi'al, a fa'il, and a maf'ulun bihi. And those are the reasons for which the words in the sentence actually get their hal. Is that understood?
Yes, Maulana.
Okay, good. Now, what I want you to do for homework is start working on the exercise in the next, on the next page, page number 7, and that is the majhul verb. So what I want you to do first is just read through this, right? Just read through this and start forming the majhul verb. And I'm going to give you a simple rule for it. I want to give you a simple rule for it. If it is past tense, right, then there will always be a dhamma on the first letter and a kasra on the second root letter. Or here we have the second last letter. Right? So just keep an example of that in your mind. Fu'ila. Dhamma on the first letter, kasra on the second root letter, or the second last letter if you want. Right? And if it's present tense, then it will start with a dhamma, right? The dhamma on the first letter, and there will be a fatha on the second last letter. Yuf'alu. Right? So what I want you to do for homework is just go through this list right? For the 10 verbs, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you see a fa'ala, 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 af'ala, tafa'ala. Go through all of these words, yeah, and form the majhul for me. First, the majhul of the maldi. This is a mistake, yeah. In the reading, it's supposed to be al-fi'lul maldi al-majhul. And then I want you to form al-fi'lul mudari' al-majhul in this column over here, in the column at the end. Right? Is it understood?
Yes, Maulana.
Okay, then we'll
Just
discuss
writing
that.
that rule down.
The rule is mentioned here, actually. The rule is mentioned in this section here. So I just mentioned it quickly now, but you can revisit it if you like on that page. But we'll discuss it next week and see how it fits into everything next week. We're ending for now. Yazid is with us. He's been waiting.
Maulana, Assalamu alaikum. Maulana, just do the first one for Allah.
Okay. Fa'ala will become what? If I put a dhamma on the first letter, fa'ala will become hu. And if I must put a kasra on the second root letter, that will become hu'ila. The ayn letter will always get a kasra for the past tense. So let's take the next one. Fa'ala. What do you think that one will become?
Fu'ila.
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 Right.
Okay.
Fu'ila. And let's take the present tense. Now it must start with a dhamma, but the second root letter must get a fatha. So what will this one be? Yaf'alu will become?
Yaf'alu.
U starts with the U, always starts with the U. Yuf'alu, right. And what do you think yufa'ilu will become? It must start with the U, so it really starts with the U. So it will be yufa'alu.
Alu.
Yufa'alu.
Alu.
Yufa'alu. Right. And just as a guide, you'll see for the past tense.
Is it yufa'alu, Maulana, not yufa'ilu?
Yufa'alu. Just look at it. If you're looking at the past tense, you'll see at the moment.
Oh, yufa'alu.
At the moment, the past tense one all have a on the ayn letter.
Yes.
So for past tense, you change it to a e. If you look at the present tense, you'll find most of them, not all, most of them have a e on the second root letter. Yufa'ilu, yufa'ilu, yufa'ilu. Okay, then it doesn't hold for yatafa'alu. And yatafa'alu, but then yanfa'ilu, yafta'ilu. It does not for the 9th scale, but then yastaf'ilu. And then for that one, you change it all to a.
Okay.
Some of them already have the a, others don't have it. But for all of them, it must have the a.
I see that.
Right, so just do that for homework. Inshallah, we'll discuss it next week. Right? And he's waiting already. Right? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Inshallah. Yazid, I'm handing over to you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.